Hello and welcome to the English Language Club. It's a Tuesday, so it's time for our weekly Hangout meeting, which I always enjoy. I am Colin Munro, if you're joining us for the first time. I'm Colin Munro, even if you're not joining us for the first time.
That's true.
But I'm just introducing myself. Anyway, and this is Tony. This is Tony Culper, my very good friend.
Good to be here.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. How about you?
Good, yeah. So we've got quite a few people watching already, and we've got a few good questions already, yes. Which is great. Now, do we want to jump straight into that, or have we got? I think because we've got some things we want to talk about. If you're a regular viewer, you'll remember last week we were very excited because we're very close to bringing you our course Inside English, which is all about tenses. And we've made a lot of progress. Do we want to talk about that first, Tony?
Why don't we wait towards the end of the stream?
Yes.
I think there's some people who aren't here yet.
That's a really good idea. So let's jump into the questions from the people who already are here. Thank you for being here on time and nice and early, if you were. So yeah, number one, you've got a great question, I think. Oh no, that's just a comment saying both of you always say the easiest. Explain English easily, especially Tony. So yeah, talking about when you explained would have. Yes, so Tony is an absolute genius. I'm very lucky to be acquainted with him and have him here with me on the live streams. Let's see, what good questions have we got? So here's one from AJ. Why is in between two words and not acceptable as a portmanteau? Portmanteau. That's one for you, Tony.
I feel like first, well, we might need to talk about what a portmanteau is, but yeah. Basically, I think what AJ's question is, because it wouldn't technically be a portmanteau, is why is in between not one word, like the way underneath is one word and things like this. So the actual answer to the question is it kind of is. In between as one word is properly written with a hyphen, but it means something different. In between, all one word or in hyphen between means, it doesn't just mean between two things, it literally means like between extremes. So like if you have an in-between kind of point of view, that means you're not extreme towards one thing or extreme towards the other, it's just kind of in the middle, right? So it just means something slightly different when it's one word. And this is something that shows up a lot in English, doesn't it, Colin, where one word that seems indistinguishable from the other ways to say something will take on a very specific meaning.
Yeah, and also, and a similar thing is when we have two words for the same thing. Maybe one's from one's the American and one's the, or maybe one's a French word and one's a Greek word originally, but they mean the same thing. Then they can evolve to have more specific meanings.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that
so?
Yeah.
We also, I mean, there's probably a lot of our viewers who don't know what a portmanteau is. You can tell by looking at it, it's a very strange word. Because it looks more French than it does English. A portmanteau is where you smash two words together, but kind of informally, rather than when we do this formally, it's called a compound word, like a jackhammer or a houseboat, right? It just becomes one word.
Orange juice.
Well,
is that one word?
Just one word? Yeah.
Well, it can still be a compound noun if it's two words.
Compound nouns, yeah. So a portmanteau or a compound word actually becomes one word. Sometimes hyphenated. So some good common examples of portmanteaus would be things like sitcom or rom-com, things like that. There's a lot of these. Botox, even Brexit. So where people take two words like romantic comedy and smash it together to form rom-com, but it's not really a formal creation of a word, though a lot of these do eventually become real words that show up in dictionaries. I'm sure sitcom is in the dictionaries. I'm not 100% sure if rom-com is, but yeah.
Well, words get added to the dictionary when they get used.
When they get used,
popular culture, yeah.
So either way, in between wouldn't be a portmanteau because it's not really a portmanteau. But it's also hyphenated, so it's not really a portmanteau. More of a compound word. Yeah.
Great. Now I missed a comment here actually by Peter. Sorry, Peter 03. He says, "Hello. Can I pronounce the word fancy as fancy? Or, for example, in the sentence, do you fancy going skiing this winter? And is it used also in American English?" So basically what you're saying is in the natural speech, can we sort of soften that the sound? And yes, I think that's you definitely can. So it's not always fancy. It can be, do you fancy, but it's not so much fancy.
It's not fancy.
But the ah is softened, yeah.
And this happens a lot, yeah. Where you'll take, the more often you say a word, vowel, certain consonants will just get softer. Not necessarily changing sound, though. Would you say, Colin? Like we talk about this sometimes, that the different sounds that we talk about are actually a range of sounds, right? Yeah. There's not just one pure ah. There's different. There's a whole range of them. If it goes far enough away, then you might call it a different sound, like the schwa or something else, right? But as long as it's kind of close, it's still the
that's
same
especially
sound.
True of the vowels.
Yeah.
You know, where in fact, in the same way that there's an infinite number of numbers between 0 and 1, there's an infinite number of vowels in between e and I, and you know, e, I, u. We talk about that as being the sort of top row, but really, there's every vowel in eu. You know, there's every one of those. It's not actually those 4 points, but those are the main points that we choose to differentiate. So yeah. But yes, the answer is yes to the question. You can, and that's just how, when you speak naturally and fast, certain vowels, certain sounds get softened. Oh, I've still got that question up. Wrong question up.
As to the question about American English, this is used, I would say, to mean like want, or would like. It's very infrequently used in American English. Occasionally, very occasionally, someone will say something like this, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's normal in English. It's just people are saying it because they've heard British people say it. Yeah, I mean, we still use it for in other ways. The word fancy. Fancy more in American English would obviously it means something that's a really complex and high class, something that's fancy, but also it refers to like the imagination, your fancy, a flight of fancy, things like that.
Now we've got another question here from Dexy, which ties in with this. It's a similar sort of topic. It's just a different example. So he says, "Good afternoon. How would you pronounce the word prepare in British English? Can I pronounce it as I think what you mean is like, again, softening the e. Like I think you mean a schwa at the end. Prepare, like prepare. And yeah, I mean, again, I would say that's not the correct phonetic transcription, but I know what you mean. You know, we're not always saying that air at the end of the word can be sort of softened, not softened, but shortened. I need to prepare.
Especially if you're using another word after it that is like maybe say like, so prepare for, like you'll have to say it in British English, but if you're talking quite quickly, you say prepare for instead of I need to prepare for my interview. It'll soften a lot more.
Yeah. So depending on what the sound, the next sound is. So prepare for and prepare to, you might be slightly different. But I would still say that either way, it doesn't change enough to kind of change the phonetic transcription.
I would agree. Yeah.
Necessarily. But it could do. Yeah. Okay. Hi, Frank. Frank in Venezuela's here. Hello.
Oh, good to see you.
Quick question: is Tony's beard real? Tony, is it real?
Every once in a while, I have some random person try to grab it and pull it off.
No.
And yes, it is very real. So please don't try to pull off my beard.
Yeah, if you ever meet Tony, don't grab his beard. Okay, here's one. What is the difference between the words want, me, and mean?
Want and mean.
For example, in the sentence, I didn't mean to make you cry.
Is I didn't want to make you cry, right?
Yeah. So I didn't mean to make you cry, or I didn't want to make you cry, I suppose. And is the sentence I didn't mean to make you cry the same as I didn't want to make you cry? Yeah, great question. And thanks for the examples. It's really great to have some example sentences like that, so that we know exactly what your question is. So they are very similar in meaning in that sentence. But it's partly down to collocation. Would you say that?
So in this particular sentence, they definitely can mean the same thing, but there is a slight nuance to it, I think. So mean means intent, right?
What you mean to do is your intention.
Yes. So want means like it's what you were hoping to get out of it, which is very similar. It's very close, right? So you could say, I didn't mean to make you cry. I'm sorry for doing that. I didn't want to make you cry. And it mean the exact same thing. But want could focus more on the, I was trying to do something and this was not the outcome I had intended, right? Whereas when it's obvious, like you weren't trying to make them cry, but that you had a specific outcome, like your desire for this situation, and it turned out differently. So those, you could mean them to mean the exact same thing, or you could mean want to be a little bit stronger in this case. Like I didn't want to make you cry. It's a little bit more specific. But it's not that the two words are different. It's just, I guess I said that, but it is because the two words are different, but it's extremely slight, because mean has to do with like your intention beforehand, whereas what is your intention of what you want afterwards. We talk a lot about purpose and goal sometimes, like what's your motivation before something happens and what's your motivation for what you want after it happens. For instance, if you do something because you're angry, that's your motivation before, right? That's what caused you to do it. If you do something because you want to save somebody, that's an after motivation. Your motivation is what's happening afterwards. And so mean refers to more what you were intending when it happened, and what refers to what you're intending for afterwards. That might be a bit complicated, but that is the answer, I'd say.
Great. Okay. So I see we've got quite a few questions coming up. Just to remind you, we just are sort of working our way from the top down. So it may take us a few minutes to get to your question, but don't worry, we will get to it. We normally get to most of the questions. Although as we get more and more people watching, it might become more and more difficult for us to do that. But for now, we still try to get to most things. I see some people have joined us. We've got Sonia. Galaxy Brawl Stars is with us again. Great to see you again. Got special announcement, particularly for you, actually. Yeah, stay tuned for that. And Suzanne's here, and Thetz, but I think you've been there with us for a while. So great to see you all. Let's see, what's the next question? I don't want to miss any again, but yeah, okay. So
technically, we did miss a question.
Did we?
Right up at the top, the comment that number one left did have a question on it. I knew I remembered something, but they asked the question later on. But I feel like we should go ahead and do that.
Oh, yes.
The first question we got, which is...
Sorry about that. Sorry for missing that. That's terrible.
Yeah, what's the difference between by and with? So We do that. We talk sometimes when we talk about prepositions, we talk about the fact that prepositions are more about collocation, what words they go with, what situations they go with, than what the word itself necessarily means. By actually can mean a ton of things. I think what you're thinking of is by meaning like next to. I was by his side, right? Whereas I was with him means more than just next to. It means like you're along, you're doing it together, doing something together. But both of these words mean a lot of different things, and they're used grammatically sometimes. With can be used to show that something is kind of being used as an adverb. It explains how you're doing it. Like he sang with gusto, right? You're basically describing how he sung. Or he solved that situation by ingenuity. It again explains how he was doing it. So there are some technical differences here, but mostly I would say it's about collocation.
Great. Yes, thanks for that. Because it came in before we actually started the live stream, I wasn't able to bring it up on the screen, unfortunately.
Oh, really? Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, sorry about that. But yes, next question. We've got one from Galaxy Brawl Stars. It says, hello, can you please tell me how to say the word draw? That's a great question because, yes, the word, it's spelled with the ER is funny. Now, this is a word that you may pronounce different in American English, right, Tony?
Yes, definitely.
So how would you say this?
Drawer.
Draw. So you just So in American English, you've got a little bit more of the R on there, but it's still
you
not
almost always will. But I think we leave out the W more than anything, right? Drawer.
Yeah. I guess draw. It's almost it's almost pronounced as if it was DROR. Draw.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's pronounced as if the W were a U, which is not surprising because W's often show up in words when they used to be a U.
But interestingly, you also have the word draw, as in to draw.
To draw.
So that's exactly the same pronunciation. So these two words are what we call homophones, because it's two words with completely different meanings, but they have exactly the same pronunciation.
But not in American English.
So how would you say the two words in American English, just to model it?
Draw and drawer. They're not at all the same.
Right.
Draw and draw.
Draw and draw.
Drawer.
Yeah. But in British English, it's both draw. Yeah. So
this is kind of an odd one, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, as we've got Galaxy up here, should we mention the video we've been working on this week?
Yeah.
I think it's a good time. So the last couple of weeks, we had a question from you, Galaxy, about the ash symbol or the sound. And
the little A and E written together.
Yeah, with no the little A and E written together. And it's one of the videos that gets the most comments, and the most comments that are that seem to have misunderstood what phonetics is all about. And it's because that symbol is used in lots of other alphabets and languages, and also it has a lot of history. And then that history gets referenced by popular culture. So it gets used in things like band names, and even Elon Musk's baby has it in it. So it's because of the wide use of that symbol, it creates a lot of confusion. So we've been working on a video all about that to try and clear that confusion up. Because my original video on it was just using it as it is used in the International Phonetic Alphabet, the IPA, and there was sort of the assumption that everyone will be watching the video because they're interested in IPA and they know what IPA is. But that obviously wasn't the case. So yes, we've been working on a video to really clear that up, and it's been fascinating because it's a video that touches on everything from K-pop to Elon Musk to the Catholic Church to Romans to all sorts of different things. From history,
first king of England.
First king of England. Yeah, Vikings.
All sorts of things. Doctors.
Yes. Yeah. So all sorts of history and popular culture are coming together for that video. It's not going to be. We're not going to release it for a few weeks. We'll talk more about that later on.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on. Let's see. So what's next? Good question. Did we do buy? Yeah, we did buy and with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Galaxy Brawl Stars question.
Yeah. So he says, is the following sentence grammatically correct? I went to the mall and shop and gas station. The mall and shop and gas station. So you're using and several times. Is it grammatically correct to do that, Tony?
So it's absolutely grammatically correct to use and instead of a comma list. Like you could say, I went to the mall, shop, mall, comma, shop, comma, and gas station. It's totally okay to use the ands instead. You just have to use that carefully because it's annoying. So if you use it, sparingly, it's okay. The problem with the sentence is not so much that. The problem is that you really should be using the word the. If you said, if you were using it would be different. But if it's the mall, it should probably be the shop and the gas station. So I went to the mall, the shop, and the gas station. And it doesn't really matter. You can say I went to the mall and the shop and the gas station. Just because I went to the refers to like going to a place. Yeah.
Yeah. But you could just say the on the first one and say, so I went to the mall, shop, and gas station.
You could, but I don't
as a kind of list.
Yes, I think you should be using the here though. It still will work without it, but I think you should be using the. Yeah. But if your question is about whether you can use and instead of commas, yes. Just be careful. Don't overuse it. This is something I do, quite a bit in my writing. I'll specifically choose a spot to use this, so to make it stand out.
So when you can do this to kind of be more emphatic.
Yeah.
But if you're just doing this all the time, it's not always appropriate. It's not grammatically wrong, but it's normally more appropriate to do a comma list. Like you say, if you're doing this all the time, it's gonna sound annoying and it will sound wrong, even though it's not grammatically wrong, strictly speaking.
It's an example of something where a grammar rule says this is the preferred thing to do. Yeah.
Okay, great. Susanna's got a question here. She says, is it possible to put the lid back on the bottle mean, presumably? Is it possible to put the lid back on the bottle? So is that as a sort of idiomatic expression? Put the lid back on.
This is a very specific idiom that has to do with genies, like mythological, like Aladdin, genies, like in a lamp. One of the other things that genies are often associated with is instead of a lamp is a bottle. So you would open the lid of the bottle and the genie would come out. And so trying to put the genie back in the bottle refers to once you've started something, it's hard to stop. To put the genie back in the bottle. Put the lid back on the bottle is another very similar. It has kind of distanced from the genie origins, but it's the same meaning. Once once you've poured something out, putting the lid back on, stopping it, making it go back to the way it was before is often very challenging. Yeah, so you hear this kind of thing on the news maybe when people are talking about something that's happened that's just changed the way we do things, right? So for instance, some people talk about, are some things that are happening right now, like online education, are these just never going to go back to normal? Is online education just going to become the new normal? And so people might say, oh, it might be too late. Is it even possible to put the lid back on the bottle?
Yeah, things have changed this year, and it could be no turning back. Yeah. Okay. So I hope that answers your question, Susanna. Let us know if that's helpful. Let's see. Now, Thet says here, my pronunciation is bad. How can I fix it, sir? Well, my main tip, I think the biggest and most important tip for pronunciation is that pronunciation is physical. And you'll have heard us say this dozens of times if you're a regular viewer. You know, the way we make sound, we're doing something physical. And if your pronunciation is bad, you're doing something wrong physically. So the main tip, think about what you're doing physically. Be aware what you're doing with your lips, your teeth, your tongue. Is it your vocal cords? Those are the main things. So there's not that many things to think about. And you know, if you can identify the particular sounds that you're having problems with, then you can watch my previous videos where I talk about how each sound is made, and then you can check that you are physically doing the right thing. And a good example of that is a lot of people struggle with the sound like as in thing and thought. Often it comes, it often comes out as this and that, you know, instead of this and that. And the reason is a lot of languages don't have that sound, and it's made in a particular way with the tongue. You see, this, that, and think. Well, think is different because it's voiced, but it's a similar thing. So a lot of people are not accustomed to sticking their tongue out like that when they speak, and that's why it comes out as d. If you try and make that sound without the tongue, it comes out as dis. You know, or some people will end up saying thing instead of thing. They say a th sound instead of a th sound, and even some native speakers do that, and that really annoys me. But yeah, especially British English, a lot of people say thing instead of thing. So that's one way. Tony, have you got any other ways, or do you think?
Well, I mean, I would definitely say, yeah, there's a ton of videos Colin has made on the English Language Club channel for any specific sound that you're struggling with. Look that up, watch the videos, listen to the examples, practice. The other thing, we talk about this a lot, is really the key, because you're never going to memorize how every word is pronounced. The way to do it is to get out there, talk to English speakers, and tell them, you know, if I pronounce a word wrong, please tell me. I think that is a really good way to actually learn. One of the things that it's kind of hard to say this as a teacher, but I think it's actually quite encouraging, is you can't learn a language purely by memorizing it. You have to practice it and internalize it. Your brain learns to do these things even if you don't remember. It's the same as like learning to play a piano, learning to play an instrument. Learning to speak a language is something that your brain has to learn how to do subconsciously. And so you just have to practice. And part of practicing is being corrected. And so tell people that you talk to, please, you know, correct my pronunciation or correct my grammar, and you will. Your brain responds well to that. And don't feel bad about it, because you're learning, right? Just like you're going to make mistakes when you're learning to play an instrument.
And as it's physical, and if you are unaccustomed to making certain sounds, in fact, and therefore doing certain things with your mouth, your lips, your tongue, it's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel uncomfortable, and you know, as you do it, your mouth might ache. It might hurt as you practice. It's like going to the gym. You know,
it's just like going to the gym.
Yeah. So sometimes if you've been practicing a word that you're not accustomed, or a sound that you're not accustomed to saying a lot, you may find your mouth hurts after a practice session. But that's good. That's good. Yes. That means you are getting more accustomed, and it will become easier.
I'm actually gonna so one more thing, kind of combining these two ideas. If you're talking to someone and you ask them to correct you, and you're continuing to have trouble pronouncing the same word or the same sound, oftentimes the English speaker, like a native English speaker, isn't going to be able to tell you what to do with your mouth to pronounce a word, because they don't think about it that way any more than you think about where you put your tongue when you're pronouncing words in whatever language you is your first language, right? That's where I think Colin's videos are so helpful, because if you realize, oh, I keep mispronouncing this one sound, and I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong, then go to one of these and hear from Colin, like what specific physical motion in your mouth needs to be done to make that sound, and then you can start practicing that sound specifically. So that's a really, really good resource if you've identified sounds that you're having trouble making.
Yeah, great. Okay, let's move on. We've got another question here from Susanna. She gives an example first. What was the only Robert was the only one among them who had ever ridden a horse. Ever ridden means what? So, to have ever done something. What does it mean to have ever done something? I think that's the question.
Well, first, just in case anyone's not clear, ridden is the past participle of ride. So have ridden or had ridden. So perfect again means that sometime in the past the actions happened, and in the present you have the results of that. So for instance, you have the skill, you know how to ride a horse because you have ridden in the past.
Yeah.
But this sentence is past tense.
So there's two things here. There's two. There's the vocabulary element, and then there's the grammar element. I was just assuming we were talking about the grammatical
element. I think Susanna, you're right. Maybe, but I just want to talk about that first, just in case anybody else is unclear. So since this sentence is in the past tense, Robert was, then in order to talk about something that's even further in the past, you have to use the past perfect, had ridden. So Robert had ridden a horse means sometime in the past he has ridden a horse. So now, or not now, but in that time the sentence is talking about, he knows how.
Yeah, I hope that's helpful. Let us know, and it'd be good to know, to clarify if you were asking about from a vocabulary point of view or a grammar point of view. Maybe you could clarify that, Susanna.
Do you want to go ahead and continue with the how? I just wanted to do the grammar first. You can still talk about the ever ridden.
So is in a more general example, to have ever done something. The only person to have ever done something. Or this is you'd often use this structure in a question. Have you ever done something? So ever, the word ever there, along with the sort of past perfect, means in your whole life. So with the past perfect, we're talking about a sort of things happening within a period of time. So if you want to emphasize that time is, your whole life up until this point, then you can say ever. But really it would be the same thing as have you ridden a horse? That would mean the same thing, but it depends on the context. You may assume if you're on holiday and somebody says to you, have you ridden a horse? You might assume that the period of time they're talking about is just this holiday. But if they say, have you ever ridden a horse? Then they mean including before now. So I think with the perfect tenses, time periods are really important, and sometimes certain time periods are just assumed. Like if I say, have you had a cup of coffee? I'm talking about today or since we started meeting, or things like that. I don't mean ever, because everyone's had a cup of coffee at some point in their life, time periods are really important to the perfect tenses. And that's something we will probably get into in Inside English.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So we haven't written a module about that sort of thing yet, but we will do. So yeah, Inside, for those of you who don't know, Inside English is the course that we're writing, and it's coming out soon, very soon. But when it first comes out, it's going to just be the first 4 modules, which will be the first module is just sort of talking about tense and how to understand it and how it actually works. And then the next 3 modules are just looking at well, first of all, the continuous tenses, then the perfect tenses, then the simple tenses. And then we'll get in. So that we've written, that's all done. That's all ready to go. We're just tweaking the website a little bit to make sure it works and testing it. That's all good. But then once we're going to release that, and then we're going to start adding more modules to it later on. So yeah. Did you want to say something, Tony?
Oh, I wanted to add something about the example, Susanta's example. Go on. Specifically, like when we use the phrase "have ever," I think that this is very closely related to the phrase "have never." So we talk about, say, I have never done this. Like there's even a children's game called Never Have I Ever. Someone asks you, they say, I have never ridden a bicycle. And then, everyone who has ridden a bicycle has to like stand up or whatever. So have never is specifically a way of saying, in all of the past, I've never done this. So have ever is just the opposite. So if any time in the past you have done it, then you have ever done it. So one is negative, one is positive, and that's why they kind of go together.
Great. Now we've got a question from somebody on Facebook. Sankar says, may I join you to talk? So this is a good opportunity just to explain a little bit about English Language Club for those of you who are new. We've been doing this on YouTube for over 6 months now, every week. But we only recently started putting these live streams out on Facebook as well. So at the moment, for the last 6 months, most of what the English Language Club has done is these live streams. But Tony and I have been working very hard on a course, which I've been talking about, which will be coming out soon. And we also were talking about this new video we've been writing. So we're working on a lot of stuff to come out very, very soon. Now you say, may I join you to talk? Now, that's another thing we need to talk about. There's obviously these live streams. You can join us for these live streams. But if you mean like in a Zoom call where we can actually see you and you can talk to us, we've experimented with that a little bit, and we do intend to do more of that in the future. So yes, watch this space. Although obviously that's not something we can do with too many people. So it will be probably something that's limited to members. So when I mean members, I'm talking about on YouTube, you can actually join the channel. Next to the subscribe button, you'll see a join button, and there's several different levels of membership. So if you, but it's still very new. We've only got a handful of members, which is great. I'm really grateful to everyone who has joined and is supporting us. And we haven't really been able to deliver much to the members yet, other than some behind the scenes videos and things like that. But we are hoping that in January, we're going to start pushing that and doing some more events that you will be able to join us and talk to us and meet us properly, probably Zoom calls. And we'll just do that. And if there's only one person that joins us, that's fine. We'll do it anyway. But hopefully we'll get more and more people. I think, strictly speaking, there are different levels. And I think it says that it's only the highest level, which is $8.99 a month, that has that live stream feature, but as you know, when we're first starting that up, and it's we don't have so many members, we'll extend that to all levels. So if you do want to support us and you do want to join us in a Zoom call very, very soon, probably in the new year, probably January, then head on over to click that join button and join up. You can just join up at the lowest level for now, and we'll probably extend all the benefits to all the levels for now until we grow a little bit larger. So yes, it's a short answer. You may join us very, very soon. And thank you for watching. Thank you for being there. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, Mustafa from Sudan. Hi there. How are you? I hope you're still watching. Let's see then. In British English, Peter 3 again says, in British English, in the word prefer, do you pronounce the R in the end of the word prefer? So I think this is similar to your previous question, was about the R at the end, the ER ending words. So I think the answer is it's different between American and British and American, and also even regional variations. So there's there are different accents which will affect this, and this is probably why this is a question. This is something that's confusing you, or this is something you want some clarification on. So I prefer that. I would say that prefer, but then in a word, let me think of a sentence. I prefer chocolate ice cream. Or what do you prefer, Tony? So I think in that sentence I am saying the R. It's not the same as a word like mother or father. It's not. We don't say prefer. So we do say the R more on prefer than we do on other words.
It's still less emphasized than, say, in American or Canadian English. Obviously, we say the R much more strongly, prefer, even in a sentence. Do you really prefer chocolate ice cream? So it's
and actually
is a scale.
Actually, then Peter's got another example. What about the word summer? So in the word summer in British English, pronounced as summer. So here is different. We don't pronounce the R so much. You can just end that with summer, like mother, father, summer, but prefer is different.
I think they have a slightly different question about summer. Can you go to the next comment? Yeah.
Is the word summer in British English pronounced as summer? Summer or sommer? So it's the first one, summer. It's that triangle is so it's summer.
Now, it's definitely the case that historically it was pronounced more summer rather than summer, but it has not been in several hundred years in English. Yeah, still in some languages closer to English, or some other like maybe Scandinavian languages, it's still pronounced that way. But because this word comes from those languages, hundreds of years ago, that's how they pronounced it in English.
Yeah, and you will see some words that have an origin, especially like towns names. Yeah. Summertown, Somerton, Somerville,
Somerset.
Somerset. Yeah, those are named after the season, summer. And sometimes they do have the old spelling with an O. But they're still pronounced.
Pronunciation has changed. Because originally it would have been pronounced more with the O. But now the spelling, even though the words with the old spelling, they're still pronounced in the new way because it's changed now. It's interesting. You can often tell how old something is, a place, by how it's spelled. You can kind of tell how far back in the language it is. Sometimes the spellings change over the years. Sometimes they change the name of a place, but it's pretty cool.
Great. Okay, another expression from Susanta. What does go back to the grassroots mean? Tony, do you want to explain this idiom?
So grassroots is an adjective that you use to describe something that is very widespread, but doesn't have leadership. It's something that a lot of people are doing. So an example would be like a movement. A movement can have like one powerful leader that everyone rallies behind, and it's focused around that leader. Or it can be grassroots, which is where it just has a lot of individual, regular people who feel strongly about something and they get involved in it. That's a grassroots movement. So when people talk about going back to grassroots, what they mean is getting away from like where there's a high level leadership, like is a political party led by the members of parliament, or is it something that is just a groundswell of individuals, just regular people who feel strongly about something and they've invested in that. So a lot of times we talk about wanting something to be grassroots. I mean, grassroots versus leadership model there's pros and cons to both, but we often talk about wanting to go back to grassroots when really what we mean is just involve more ordinary people in something instead of it just being about the elites.
Exactly. Yeah, it's often also used in sports. So like you've got the Premier League football, but then you've also got sort of grassroots football, at schools and in parks. If you're going to play football and you're not a professional, where you're doing it and who you're doing it with, that activity could be described as grassroots football. It's sort of the beginning of things. It's the root of it, which grows.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's see. Meriuma says, how can I learn phonetic transcription? I mean, that's a great question. And I mean, so I've sort of learned it mostly, although I'm still always referencing the chart to remember certain symbols, but I have become very familiar with all of them. But it's just a question of practice, like everything really. But I would say if you can, there are certain websites, certain dictionary websites. I know that the one I use a lot is what is it? I think it's Collins. Collins dictionary. That's a very good one.
Wow.
Not me, as in Collins me, but Collins.
The Collins, yes, with two L's. Yes, the Collins.
Yeah, so that's a good one because it has the phonetic transcription. So I often just go there, look up a word, and there's it gives me the phonetic transcription. So you can use sites like that to to show you words spelled, transcribed, and then over time you'll just become more and more accustomed to it, more and more used to it. Also, you could go through the sounds one by one to to actually learn what they are, what they mean, how you physically pronounce them. So watch all my videos on that. That's another great way. I mean, that's why I made the videos, to kind of help people learn it. And really the reason was because when I started teaching English 10 years ago, I'd always go into every classroom had one of those phonetic charts on the wall, and no one ever really knew what they were for. No one ever really used them very much. So I just made a few videos and it sort of took off. So I guess be patient, but be perseverant. Persevere with it. Keep practicing. And yeah, so reference the chart a lot, and you'll then start to memorize. You'll memorize it automatically if you're constantly referencing it. Because it's only 44 different sounds. It's not that many, and a lot of them are, similar to the regular alphabet. So it's only really a handful that you need that are difficult to learn. So yeah, that would be my advice. Let's see. Okay, AJ says, is it worth watching The Crown to improve speaking? Okay, so watching TV is a great way to learn English. And I've never actually watched The Crown, so I don't know if it's a particularly good show for it, but maybe because it's all about British royal family, so it'll have very a particular type of English.
It'll be very refined.
Yeah. So yes, but is it as a way of improving your speaking? Probably not. Just watching something, it'd be good for listening, maybe good for vocabulary if you're doing what Susanna does, which is write things down and then look them up, or come and ask someone what that means if you don't understand something. But it's not going to help with your speaking unless you then speak to someone about it, which could be a good way of starting conversations. So potentially, it's potentially a good way. Yeah,
I will throw this out there. Some people are just really good at adapting their accent or their pronunciation to what they hear as opposed to what they're talking. It's kind of like how some musicians play by looking at notes, and some play by ear. They just hear something and then they can play it. So if you are, I'm by the way, I'm not that way at all for music. I'm terrible at that in music, but I am that way in speaking and pronunciation. I do tend to change the way I talk depending on who I'm around, or even what I've been watching. So some people are. I would not say most people are, but if you are one of those, and for whatever reason you just really want to speak with a royal accent, then that would work for you. But not for, I don't think, most people.
But it's not a bad model to follow, even if it's not what you end up speaking.
It certainly will help you learn to recognize that accent and be able to understand what they're saying.
So we're just going to quickly go back to what Susanna was asking about. Have you ever ridden a horse? She just clarifies, say, I couldn't understand the use of ever here. So I think we've cleared that up. So referring to the period of time that started at the beginning of your life.
But she also has another comment later on.
Yep. So I was just going to add to that. Is ever positive or negative?
No. Further on.
Oh.
So
this one
has the example. I understand I had eaten mangoes, but I don't get I had ever eaten mangoes. And yet you wouldn't say I had ever eaten mangoes. You might ask someone, have you ever eaten mangoes? Or you might say, like in that previous sentence, she was the only one who had ever eaten mangoes, right? So you don't use it in a kind of a direct construction like that. You could, however, use the negative of that. I hadn't ever, or I had never eaten mangoes, right? So again, ever and never are opposites, right? Never means in all of your past you've not done something. Ever means in all of your past you have done something. But we don't use ever as just part of a straight construction. Usually it's just part of a question or something similar.
And also remember that when you specifying ever just clarifies that you are, or emphasizes that you're talking about in your whole life. Or it could be, it could be if you're talking about the planet Earth, it could be that millions of years. We're talking that period could be billions of years. But if you don't use the word ever, it still reverts to the assumption that you're talking about in your whole life, depending on the context. So
if you were saying something like, she wanted to try mangoes, but I didn't bother because I had eaten mangoes before, right? You might want to add something like before or earlier or something like that to specify what time you're talking about. But just grammatically, you wouldn't be able to say because I had ever eaten mangoes.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So we'll get back to you, Galaxy. We're just gonna go back here to Tai. When I read books, I find the phrase theatre goers. I wonder that can we write other phrases like shopping goers or fishing goers, etc. Thanks in advance. So no, not
there are
really.
a few. None of those.
Yeah. Okay, but it's not a rule that you can just name an activity and then add goers to it and make a compound.
Not an activity, a place. Theater.
Yeah.
Theater is a place. That's why it works.
You go to a
theater
place.
Goer. So like technically any place you can use, but they're only used for a certain number of things. The main ones I can think of are moviegoers, theater goers, church goers, and maybe like festival goers, the fair goers. But again, those are all places that you can go. Technically, you could use that for any place. Like they are parking lot goers or river goers, but it's not something that it grammatically works, but it's not something we actually say. Whereas words like, a church goer is an actual word, and without even a hyphen. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are certain places along with goer that have become are regularly used. You could have any place plus goer and people would understand you, but they're not all. It might sound strange because then, if you say I'm a park goer, that's not something that is an established expression, but people would probably understand you.
Right. Yeah. Whereas something like party goer is a word, for instance. Whereas something like lake goer, park goer isn't actually a word.
So Galaxy, you asked, did you say there was an announcement just for me? Yes, we did. You're going to have to go back and find that because we talked about that. Basically, we have been working on a video based on some questions that you asked over the last couple of weeks regarding the ash symbol and the ah sound.
Yeah, the little A and E written together.
Yeah. Great. Well, it's coming to the end of our time, but we did, as we were saying at the beginning, we want to give an update about what we have been doing, yes, we keep saying the course Inside English is coming. It's coming, and it is, and it is. So the situation is, it is almost ready, but we're just now tweaking the website to make sure it all works properly and to give it a revamp, make it look nicer. So it's very, very close. But what we've decided is that we're going to have a sort of big launch month in January. So we're going to let people relax, have the holidays in December, and then a lot of people might have a New Year's resolution to improve their English. So we'll have lots of offers and live streams starting in January. And that's when Inside English will become properly available. But we're going to keep doing these live streams for between now and then on most weeks, maybe not at Christmas. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But in January, we are going to be doing a lot of stuff. We're planning to hopefully do some kind of a live stream every day. I'm going to reach out to some other YouTubers and other people who teach English on Instagram and things like that to try to get them involved. So if you teach English on Instagram or YouTube and you'd like to join us in a live stream, let me know. That would be great. Or if you know of anyone else who does and you'd like to see me have a conversation with them, or Tony have a conversation with them, then let us know, let them know, and we'll try to make that happen. We're like I said, we're working on some videos now that are going to come out in January. So as well as kind of some live streams more regularly, and also we're going to do some more things for the members, like I was mentioning earlier about the Zoom calls. So if you want to be in a Zoom call with us, technically that is I think that's part of the highest level, but for the month of January we'll extend that to people in all levels. Well, as long as if we get sort of 10,000 members and we're having start and then we have 10,000 people wanting to join us in a Zoom call, that's not going to work. So we will have to.
We might have more than one Zoom call.
Yeah. But we also might have to restrict it to the people at the higher level. But yeah, if you want to join us in a Zoom call, we will definitely be giving you the opportunity soon if you are a member on the site. So yeah, hopefully you'll join us at this as we enter this exciting new period. And yeah, thank you to everyone who does join us on a regular basis. It's been really great to kind of get to know you. And yeah, I really like doing these live streams every week. Tony, do you want to add anything about the course and any?
Well, I mean, I'm very excited to finally be able to share all this stuff. We're very excited. We're going to kind of do this like early access thing, right? Where we're not done with the course, but we're going to go ahead and give you access to it, and starting in January for a discount. But like you'll be getting a great deal, because when we are finishing the whole course, you'll still have access to it. So it'll be pretty fantastic. I'm excited about the videos that we've been working on. Not part of the course. We've got a lot of really good stuff. So I mean, things this year has been crazy for a lot of people. We've both had stuff going on in our offline lives that keep us busy, but we're really hoping that again, starting in January, we're just
this is not our job. This is not our job. We're doing this. I mean, the channel makes a small amount of money from the ads, but it's really not very much. So we both have other jobs. We're doing this in our spare time, and it's been really tiring doing a lot of writing and as well as working full time as well. So, but it's exciting, because I do hope that we can both turn this into a full time job, and then we can be there for you a lot more and put a lot more content out there, because I know that people appreciate it. So I really wish I could do it more, and I hope I will be able to. So yeah, I think we will end it there then. So thank you for watching, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.